Hey everybody, guess what? Back again, same week. What the hell's going on? I don't know. How did I find time to do this stuff in between all the stuff I got going on? Well, it's actually about 5 minutes after I recorded the last episode of BK's Bulletin put out this week, so yeah, I'm kind of cheating. But anyway, that's beside the point. It was only 30 minutes. I figured, what the fuck, we'll do this. So same thing as last time. Sorry about the sound quality. It was great. I got a new headset. But as I was sitting in my chair kind of squeaks. So that's what you heard last time, was the squeaky chair. So I will try not to sit back in that one. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. I'm gonna lay down some background music, so hopefully that kind of takes it out of there. But anyway, let's get moving on. So we talked about Green Arrow. Also reread two Final Crisis miniseries, the Final Crisis Revelations and Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds. Both of these I haven't revisited since they came out, so it was kind of nice to do that. Let's do Final Crisis Revelations first. This is written by Greg Rucka, art by Philip Tan, inks by Jonathan Glapion. I love this series. I liked it a whole lot. It kind of is weird reading this alongside Final Crisis as this came out, because this kind of uses the whole crime Bible and Mark of Cain, all this stuff that Greg Rucka has been developing since '52 in the question the Blood Bible, 5 Questions of Blood, or whatever that miniseries was called. I think the actual trade says the question on it, but I think that originally it was about the 5 chapters. The title was like 5 chapters of blood, and you didn't know it was a question book. So leads in from that. It starts off with Question as like the leader of the Crime Bible cult, as it ended in that 5-issue miniseries, 5 Books of Blood or something like that. I think I'm gonna stop trying to say this title. I can't remember it because I didn't buy it, but I did read it online or something like that, or a trade. Who knows? But starts off, and it also comes in with the Spectre stuff that Greg Rucka. I don't know if he started. He didn't start because Gotham Central ended, Crispus Allen died, and that's where Renee kind of fell off the page. Kind of fell off the boat. She quit being a cop at the end of that series in issue 40, I think it was, something like that. And then in the Infinite Crisis Aftermath, which kind of that's how far back this was, when Crispus Allen died and became the Spectre, they had the Spectre miniseries. And I did a BK's Bullets on that. It's on one of the old Raging Bullets episodes, so search for that in their show notes, on their Libsyn feed, you'll find it. And that I kind of go over there, those 3 issues. That also had some great art by Cliff Chang. I forget the writer right now, but that was when we first got a taste of Cliff Chang. And then later on after that, he did the Green Arrow Black Canary run, which I totally forgot to talk about him last time, but that's another story. So, Final Crisis Revelations, 5 issues, great series. You've got the Spectre, you got the Question, Renee Montoya, you got Batwoman, Kate Kane, you got Vandal Savage, and you got a new entity of God called the Radiant, who's the spirit of hope and forgiveness, basically. And the Spectre is God's hand, the hand of God, God's spirit of vengeance. So we kind of, we had seen the Spectre since his Infinite Crisis Aftermath miniseries in the Tales of the Unexpected, also, covered in Raging Bullets. I think the first couple issues they covered, I didn't pick that up. I don't know why. I think it was because I saw it had Eric Battle art, and so going back to Final Crisis Revelations, it was weird reading this as Final Crisis was happening, because, getting back to the story, Final Crisis says the world is going to shit because of Darkseid, and this kind of says the world is going to shit because of the Crime Bible and its prophecies, and Cain, aka Vandal Savage, which I'm kind of confused about. So it's just weird reading these alongside each other, but thematically it fits great. All of the prophecies that Greg Rucka is laying out here, all the stuff they're reading from the Crime Bible, kind of fits what's going on with the apocalypse stuff, when the new gods dying and all this other stuff. But thinking back to 52, there's a lot of new gods kind of language in there. Whenever they spelled apocalypse in 52 in the Crime Bible, they spelled it the way that the DC Universe does, as in the planet with AK. So that was just kind of marries the two different worlds and things of the DC Universe together, which actually I think helps the series a lot. So really, this story is about three things. It's about the Spectre, it's about Renee Montoya, and it's about God. The Spectre, it's Crispus Allen finally it's closing the Crispus Allen arc that started in the Infinite Crisis Aftermath, the Spectre 3 issues. Because there, he began becoming the Spectre. And at the end of that 3-issue miniseries, his son Malcolm, I think his name was, Malcolm Allen, killed Jim Corrigan, who was a cop. Not the original Spectre, just another cop named Jim Corrigan in Gotham City who actually murdered Crispus Allen. Took revenge on the guy. I don't remember how he found out that this guy is the guy that's responsible or whatever, but God made the Spectre take his son's life. And he didn't do it in a Spectre-like manner with the Wrath of God, like what happens in the first issue where he turns Dr. Light into a candle. This is where Dr. Light dies, in case you're reading the Blackest Night and going, wait a minute, I thought he raped Sue Dibney. He did. He died in this first issue. But the Spectre in that little miniseries just kind of, closed his son's eyes and was just like, go in peace and kind of thing. So that was kind of weird. But ever since then, Crispus Allen has been at battle with the spirit of the Spectre and with God, saying, why did you make me kill my own son? And this whole miniseries kind of wraps that up, wraps up that arc. And we really I don't think we've seen much of the Spectre since then, until he appeared in Blackest Night and became a Black Lantern, which is kind of ignored in the miniseries and Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps. So I'm thinking that's going to be covered in the Phantom Stranger Blackest Night issue, but we'll find out. But anyway, kind of wrapped up the battle within the Spectre that was going on, and that was a storyline I really liked. So it's good that Greg Rucka, got his hands on that, because I don't think he wrote that Spectre miniseries. I want to say it was Peter Milligan or something like that. But it's the character Rucka helped create. So it's good that he got to kind of wrap stuff up. And it's about talking about Renee Montoya. This is kind of Renee. I think it's her really coming into grips of her role as the Question. We saw her kind of do it in 52. We saw her kind of do it in Countdown for the 2 issues she was in it. Crime Bible, 5 Books of Blood, we saw her doing that. But I think this is really where, or at least for me, where I kind of felt like, alright, her as the Question is badass. Because she was badass in this series. And what was the third thing? It's about God. Everything in here is a battle with God. You got the Spectre, you got this nun-looking spirit called the Radiant, who's the spirit of hope and forgiveness. And then you got Vandal Savage, or Cain, as they refer to him in, I can't forget if it's 2 or 3 that this happens in. But basically, in the first issue, Dr. Light is killed by the Spectre, takes him, turns him into a candle, burns him up. He also takes Effigy, who I want to say is a Firestorm villain, I'm not sure. But he was also in that scene where Martian Manhunter died, so that's why this is going on. Spectre is holding Dr. Light and Martian Manhunter responsible for the Martian Manhunter's death. It goes after Libra too, really quickly, which is why Libra is on that cover, the little strip cover of this issue. But for some reason, the Spectre can't touch him, which they never... I felt that they kind of never explained later on. But who knows? It was a minor thing. I think that was the thing to tie it into Final Crisis. The Martian Manhunter had just died. Here's the Spectre taking vengeance on him. Hey, we're going to throw Libra in there, who you kind of forgot about halfway into Final Crisis anyway. But and then we get to the God stuff, which is where the kind of series takes off in issue 2 through issue 5. So that was really cool. The thing with Cain, they get a hold of the Spear of Destiny, which is the spear that pierced Christ's side. Apparently, in the DC Universe, Hitler had it in Europe, which is why the JSA never went to Europe in the comics or something like that. They get a hold of it, and they give it to... The Crime Bible gets a hold of it. And then they go to Vandal Savage, who's living somewhere. And they give it to Vandal Savage and kind of stick him with it and say, here you go, have fun. And then he gets this mark on him, which is the mark of Cain, is something in the Bible. And God marked Cain so that everyone would know he was a murderer. This big flaming thing shows up on his face. I don't know if this is implying that Vandal Savage is Cain. In fact, the son of Adam and Eve, because we kind of know him as a caveman. So, two differing stories there, kind of confusing. But I mean, they're two different mythologies, and we don't know which one is true. Maybe God did create caveman in the DC Universe. Maybe he did it in our universe. Who knows? I'm not going to argue that's theological stuff. I'm not going to get into that. But for me, it was just weird because he's Cain, but he's Vandal Savage, the caveman. So I'm kind of thinking that the spirit of Cain is in this spear. Once they give the spirit to Vandal Savage, Cain's spirit kind of takes over his body, and or maybe it comes from somewhere else. I don't know. I have no clue. But strangely enough, I think this is the last time we've seen Vandal Savage. I don't know if we've seen him anywhere else. And this is also after Vandal Savage appeared in the Justice Society of America comic that's currently going on. So this is after that. So we kind of haven't seen him since then, since this miniseries. But all in all, if you did not read this miniseries, you just thought it was something weird, I think you should pick this up. Great little series. Kind of calls into question a lot of things about faith and religion and God. Not calling into question so much as raising questions or making you think. I think is what the best thing of this series did. It made you think a whole lot about God and theology and religion, or at least it did me. I mean, that's not its point. It's not trying to be blasphemous. It's not trying to offend people. Don't get me wrong here. It's a story that uses God and that mythology, if you want to call it that story, those themes, as a tool to tell a story using the DC Universe characters of the Spirit Question and Vandal Savage. Huntress also shows up, makes a great appearance here. Greg Rucka uses her great. So that's kind of cool. And going back to the Question backup that's in Detective Comics now, also written by Greg Rucka, you got the Huntress and and Renee teaming up again after this miniseries, so that's cool. And Batwoman's in here for 2 seconds. That's kind of neat. I don't know what to say. Let's talk about the art. We got Philip Tan on art, who a lot of people like, a lot of people don't. For me, his art in this series is phenomenal. It's good. It's solid. Issues 1 and 2 are great. Issues 5 is great. I think 3 and 4 kind of let up a little bit in terms of greatness. There were some delays in this series coming out, but they weren't anything as major as issue 7 or Legion of Three Worlds, which I'm going to get to eventually in this episode. But the quality does dip a little bit. But I think these 5 issues are his strongest work at DC so far, and really, I think they're his first work at DC, because he did DC Universe 0, but he was doing a lot of Spawn before then. He did some X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, in October 2003. Did an issue of Thor in February 2003. See Nightwing on this list? Anyway, he went from here. He did the Agent Orange arc on Green Lantern, which is where people started to kind of go on him, because his art was good on the first issue, but then he kind of played around with these watercolor type panels, which I think failed because he's such a dark and detailed artist. And then he switched to his watercolor type stuff, and it's still the same style, but it just didn't work in terms of the Green Lantern Agent Orange stuff. I mean, it wasn't like an impact panel. It was just kind of, I forget how he used it, but I didn't think he used it well. And then after that, he went and did Batman and Robin 4, 5, and 6 with the Red Hood stuff, which me and Ian talked about those, I think, on another review corner, and we loved that art. Because that art kind of harkened back to this stuff. Dark, muddy, inky, Jonathan Glapion is on there too, knocking it out of the park with inks. So I think Final Crisis Revelations and this Batman and Robin stuff is the strongest stuff so far at DC. So we'll find out what he's got in store, for us on the Outsiders when he jumps on there with Dan DiDio, which I want to say it's Superboy, but I think he's joining the Teen Titans, so I don't know. We'll find out. But enough about Final Crisis. Let's talk about Legion of Three Worlds. Alright, so Legion of Three Worlds. This is probably the most delayed DC comic in recent history, besides All-Star Batman and Robin. We had issue number 1 come out pretty reasonably. Issue number 2 came out after that a little bit more reasonably. 3 and 4 even less reasonably, and then number 5, oh my god, I don't even remember when that came out. But it was like 6 months, 6, 8, 9, 10, maybe a year after Final Crisis actually wrapped. But that's okay, because the span of this miniseries takes place within minutes of Final Crisis. Superman, he leaves Final Crisis and then comes back, within the second that he did it, or something like that. I think he's returning from this adventure as Final Crisis starts, actually. I need to go back and check that out. But, this is another book that people kind of forgot about once it ended, I think. When you're reading stuff so sporadically in, month to month, to 6 months, to 4 months, to a year, as a periodical, if you're not going back and rereading this stuff before, you're just kind of going to go, I mean, I read number 5 when it came out, and I was like, that's a good, strong ending. But I didn't remember half the stuff that happened. And when you read these 5 issues together, it's a damn good story. Really damn good. Written by Jeff Johns, art by George Perez, which is where the delays came in, and inks by Bob Wycheck, who inked him on Brave and the Bold. And if you haven't read that stuff with Mark Waid, go back to that and then check out this. And that's why George Perez wasn't on the last 3 issues of that 12-issue run, because he left to get us started on this, which is like huge. So let's talk about the art for a second. George Perez, master storyteller, master artist, and delaying this book, I'm glad they did. Reading it back to back to back, I'm glad they delayed it. Hell yeah. It's something that was self-contained. It didn't have to come out in time necessarily. The only thing is that it needed to come out on, number 4. At the end of number 3 and 4, Kid Flash came back. And then, number 5, Superboy comes back. Or he comes back at the end of 4. I can't remember. But so those needed to come out by a certain time. And they did. I think Flash Rebirth number 1 kind of ruined the Kid Flash thing. Or at least it didn't ruin that he came back. I think it ruined that he came back to the present somehow. So that was kind of weird, because it hadn't Legion of Three Worlds hadn't ended before Flash Rebirth came out. So that was interesting. But, reading these as 5 issues, it's a fantastic story. And George Perez, just, good God, he's the guy to tell the story. Not only because he's a master storyteller, but because all of his characters look different. each member of the Legion, their faces, their expressions, looks different, and not just the costumes I'm talking about. And it's most apparent with Brainiac, because his 3 duplicates, Brainiac 5, the guy from the current Legion, which is actually the original Legion from Superman and Legion Superheroes, is kind of what this spins out of. So Superman Legion of Superheroes comes out after Mark Waid's Legion has ended. So, to my knowledge, and I'm not a Legion guy, I read Superman Legion Superheroes in Action Comics as kind of my first exposure to them. Okay, some miscellaneous issues in between. But that was my first exposure to them, and that was the original Legion from 19 whatever. Superboy and the Legion way back when, before anything got rebooted. And this is kind of them growing up. They're in their 20s, they're not teenagers anymore, late 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, spans the range of them. But everybody's there. Previously, in that story, you had Earthman. You had basically a bunch of Earth heroes, people from Earth, kind of kick the Legion out of Earth. A lot of xenophobia, fear of aliens kind of thing. So Superman helped reconcile that. Big battle ensues. Gary Frank art, freaking awesome Gary Frank art. And then Superman leaves, says, if you ever need anything again, call me. I will not hesitate to come. And you kind of see that in the first issue because Superman's ring's buzzing. Superman, we need your help. I'm sorry to do this, but if you just say go, we'll just come. And he's like, go. No hesitation at all, just go. Like Jim says all the time on Raging Bullets. Go, I'm there if you need me. You could send me back right back when. Go. I'm going to help you guys. You guys are my best friends, or childhood friends. He loves these people, pretty much. So he's going to do anything he can to just help them. And that, it's a great story. But is this a Superman story? Yes and no. I mean, technically, I guess you could say every Legion story is a Superman story because they're inspired by him. There's a lot of Superman worship within the Legion as far as, this is the legacy Kal-El set for us. That's why we started the Legion, blah, blah, blah. But really, this is a Legion story, and Superman is just a minor character in it. So that was kind of interesting. And I would say that if you have not read Superman, the Legion Superheroes from Action Comics, Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, you need to read that. And then you can go read Legion of Three Worlds, because they tie in together very nicely. And that is a little bit more contained as far as characters go. You get the idea of who these characters are in that story, where they're at currently right now in the present. You find out pretty much everything you need to know, and that one is the one where it has all of the little bubbles that say who this character is, what his powers are, where he's from, in every issue on his first appearance. So then, by the time you get to this, you know who everybody is, what their powers are, and it's not going to be confusing when they multiply times 3. So that was a little confusing. But as long as you read that before this, if you haven't read any of them, you're fine. And you won't regret doing that, because they're both fantastic stories. So, going back to George Perez, the guy is just phenomenal. You read Crisis on Infinite Earths, you read this, you read JLA Avengers, you know why his, you don't care why his books are late, because he turns in great work. He turns in great work. Like, when Flash Rebirth number 6 comes out, I hope it's the best fucking thing Ethan Van Sciver's ever done. Better than the Sinestro Corps special, which is hard to do, in my honest opinion. He's my favorite artist. But, we don't know if those delays are editorial or him or whatever, who knows. But, who knows if that's going to be his best work. But here, whatever the delays were, just time, probably, because every page is so detailed. He put everything into every page. You cannot look at one of these pages and go, he kind of winged this one. Or, this isn't a 5-star page, this is a 3-star page. Every page in here is a 5-star page. Every page. And it was great. So that just makes it fantastic. When you read it all in one shot, it just makes it fantastic. As well as the story. Superboy Prime, a lot of people aren't fans of. I love him. I loved him here. I love him in his Adventure Comics issues that just came out. I think this is kind of what redeemed him from Countdown. He was annoying as hell in Countdown. Infinite Crisis, he was certainly interesting to come back. But I think it's where Countdown and Sinestro Corps, I think he was pretty good in Sinestro Corps. You know, I mean, Jeff Johns usually writes him, but anytime anybody else doesn't, he's not used very well. But here he was really interesting because he's angry that he doesn't have a legacy as a Superman villain. So he kind of sets out in the future to erase Superman's legacy in the future and make one of his own. So he enlists the help of the Legion of Supervillains, which is pretty much a huge amount of supervillains. It's basically everybody from the prison planet of Takron Galtos. I'm surprised I know that information at all. But so it's kind of cool. They get flight rings of their own. Superboy kind of heat shields or heat visions and estimate every one of them. Is cool. Also in this, you got he was Ion, but he was the Green Lantern that just recently died in Green Lantern Corps. Hold on, let me think of his name. Sodom Yat. Which is, you know, reading Green Lantern Corps recently and then reading this, it's kind of weird because currently in the DC universe, this guy's dead. But apparently here, he's the last of the Green Lanterns. And he's lasted into 1,000 years of the future. He's the last of the Guardians. He's sitting on Oa, on top of a mountain of Green Lantern rings. And it kind of redeems him because he was kind of being a lazy ass. And then kind of comes out of his shell in issue number 3 and whoops some ass. Helps the Legion whoop some ass against Superboy Prime. You know, it's kind of a rematch from the Sinestro Corps War and that those issues that Patrick Gleason did. So really, really badass stuff. You know, and then the next, so this series is full of comebacks. You got the comeback of Superboy Prime as a badass character. He's still a whiner, but he's badass. You got the comeback of the original Legion, or a badass. You get the comeback, you know, so this is like 1, 2, and then the comeback of Sodom Yat number 3. You get the comeback of Kid Flash number 4. Kind of takes care of Superboy Prime there. And then you get the comeback of Superboy Connor Kent in number 5. Con-El. It's like there's a comeback in every issue, which is what makes these issues so powerful and so great that they're not the, I mean, they're not the same. Each issue ends on a great cliffhanger. And the ending where they send Superboy Prime back to his original world and he's reading comic books about what's going on, just an amazing ending. And then they parlay that into Adventure Comics with what went on in there, and that was a whole lot of fun with the Black Lantern rings and reading the comic book about himself, and loved it. Man, I don't know why people don't like his character, but I think he's a great, great character, especially when used correctly, and I think Jeff Johns really does. Although sometimes he is a bit heavy-handed because he is so whiny, but I mean, what fanboy isn't? You know what I mean? So I'll give the break on that, but fantastic story. So if you're reading DC Comics right now, and you skipped Final Crisis, or you skipped this miniseries, and you're wondering where Kid Flash and Superboy came back from, this is the series you need to pick up. For real. You need to pick up this series because it's a great story, and it gives you some insight into the Legion backups that were in Adventure Comics. Because that Legion is also the same one that's featured in these 5 issues, as well as that Action Comics run with Gary Frank and Jeff Johns. So, you know, and there are big things coming for the Legion. They're getting their own series, you know, which was some recent news, which I thought they were going to take over Adventure Comics with it, and I thought that would be fine. But now they're getting their own series, and Adventure Comics is going to continue. I don't know if it's going to be Superboy or not, but I'm kind of up in the air as far as those 2 series go. But I mean, that's a separate issue, but this series is great. So if you haven't reread these since you got them, go back and reread them in one shot, and you won't be pleased, and you'll understand why they waited so long to put these out, because it was a labor of love for George Perez, and you can really see that in each and every page. You know, and it's a dense read too. each page is jam-packed with characters and word balloons and story. I mean, there's not a page here that reads pretty quickly. You know, it's kind of like Kevin Smith's. Jeff Johns is so wordy in these issues because there's so many characters. And usually Jeff Johns, to me, I find him pretty sparse. You know what I mean? He leaves a lot of space on the page unless he's doing a heavy exposition, which here, there's not a whole lot of exposition, but there's a lot of characters talking, so I mean, you're going to have some heavy things. Plus, you got the density of George Perez's art everywhere. It's a dense book. It's a dense book for 5 issues. It'll take you a little while to read it, I think. But I think you're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it. So definitely check that out. Check out Final Crisis Revelations. I think these are 2 overlooked miniseries after Final Crisis because of the letdown of number 7 and the wait and the delays and everything. These kind of got forgotten about, and they really deserve a second look because they're both great. So check them out, and we will see you soon with episode 100 part 2 and another review corner where we kind of catch up from the last 2.5 months or so since we've done one. I think the last one we did before episode 100. So check those out, and I'll see you guys soon next time I read through a bunch of old stuff. Alright, bye.